Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Demetrio, the CEO of Lorraine Gregory Communications, the founder of the Ask a CEO interview series. Today's going to be a little bit different. We have Frank Romeo here, who's a PTSD sufferer for many, many years coming out of the Vietnam War. He's taken up the cause to help people with PTSD by going homeless and living in shelters alongside the veterans who are homeless and suffering from PTSD and various other mental health disabilities. So Frank is also the star of a film called The Walk with Frank?
Yes, Walk with Frank.
Walk with Frank, which we'll tell you later how to get access to that. It's very informative because what he did was he put his own life on hold. Now Frank's been 100% PTSD disability for 50 years.
50 years, yes.
50 years. And it's just awesome that he was able to do what he did to step outside of that, or carry that, if you will, and try to put that message out in front of people that there are people who are suffering, people who need help, and how they can get a hold of it. Yes, Frank?
Correct, yes.
All right. So tell me, what got you to do the walk?
An old man.
I mean,
I
watched the film and I said, I couldn't do that in a million years.
Well, if you're going to get attention, you get an old man walking down the side of the road with a flag, and so people start looking at you, paying attention. I've been one of the longest living veterans diagnosed at 100% from the government. It's over 50 years, so I've gone through the stages of PTSD. I'm a suicide survivor.
Thank you, God.
And so, I've gone through all the stages. For the last 30 years, I've been traveling the country and educating people about PTSD and suicide, talking to our veteran population, not just veterans, but the general public. And so I've been doing that so long, and people are very responsive. But I had a limited audience. I'd be at an auditorium and 100 people. I needed to get more attention. So about 5 years ago, I came up with Walk with Frank, and I decided that I'm gonna give up my worldly possessions, declare myself homeless, register with the Homeless Coalition, and I'm gonna live in shelters and eat in soup kitchens. So in doing so, I started in Buffalo, and I walked 750 miles down here to Long Island.
Wow. Amazing. How did the film come to be?
Well, I decided, I need to document the story of our homeless. And we need to talk to the men and women in the shelters and document their stories. I mean, people could take my word for it, but we need firsthand account.
Well, tell us about your story, your fight with PTSD. What did that look like?
It was for many years. Again, I'm a suicide survivor, and the hopelessness, and I've gone through all the stages over 50 years. The trauma, denial, drug and alcohol abuse, prison. So I've been through it all, and so struggling with that for many, many, many years, and finally in midlife, after 2 decades, I came to terms with it. I decided, I needed something. I needed to tell my story. I began painting. I began to do my trauma on canvas. And so I'm one of the original artists in the National Veterans Art Museum in Chicago. And so there was when I started to put out my artwork, my trauma artwork, people responded, and other veterans.
That artwork, I have to tell you, is very moving.
You don't need me to speak. All you have to do is look at the artwork.
It says everything that needs to be said, where your head was at that moment.
Yeah. And so that kind of snowballed, one thing after another. I began teaching, I began lecturing, and then that led me up to Walk with Frank.
So how did you break out of it? I mean, really.
I think my family, now in the documentary, the entire documentary, there's no studio time. Everything's on the road. So we're talking in real time. And in real time, there were different occasions. I have 7 children. They walk with me at certain periods. We had family day, and we walk across the Hudson into Poughkeepsie together. And so I allowed them to tell their story. That's a whole nother level of trauma, is the children of traumatized people. I mean, we don't realize it. mental health is contagious. So when you have one person in the family suffering, the entire family suffers. And so my children suffered through my stages with me. And I allowed their interviews. I had nothing to do with the interviews. The cameraman took them aside on a walk and interviewed them. And you see in the film that, they tell what it was like living with me. It was terrible. I abused them. It was just a terrible life for the children suffering of
So you've come through a whole reclamation of the person you were before to the person you are today.
Correct.
As an advocate, as a proponent of
Yeah.
helping.
Yeah.
So tell me, what did you learn from the veterans that you came across in the documentary?
Mainly on this walk, I learned to listen. I had a problem listening to other people because I was caught up in my own trauma. I learned to listen to these veterans. I learned to listen to the homeless and let them talk about their story.
And what did they tell you?
Yeah, they went through the same stages, except they haven't gotten to the point where I am today. So they're now going through. Some are taking the first step, and and the film seems to create a safe place for people to talk. So after every presentation, no one goes home. We just sit around in the audience and start talking.
Share.
Yeah, I did. We shut down Westfield Mall in Bay Shore, and we had an outdoor. We found a 6-story high TV screen and brought it into the parking lot. And the parking lot was full of cars, and they screened the film. And then after the film was over, it was like 10 o'clock at night. No one went home. Everyone got out of their cars and started sharing stories. So, as you see in the documentary, I'm listening to these veterans, to these homeless people, and they're talking about, how do I do this, and how do I get from A to B, and can you help me do this? And of course, I can only tell them my story. I'm not a doctor or a clinician. I can only tell them my story and say, look, this is what I went through.
Yeah.
And it seems that one-on-one, because I'm not a clinician, because they're not sitting in a doctor's office,
It's a freer conversation.
It's a freer conversation, and they open up and they tell me about their trauma, and what they want to do is express themselves. You'll learn, if you explore more into this, they need to be heard. Everyone with trauma needs to be heard.
Every time I've exposed the fact that I'm a PTSD survivor, you would be so surprised at what comes back at you from others who didn't even know they had it maybe, and recognize what you went through, and they said, wow, now I know what I went through.
Right.
So I was fortunate.
It's self-reflective, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You look at yourself and you say, wow, that's right. That's how I feel. And there's always a nook and cranny in you that when you have the conversation, the open conversation, maybe today, and I know I will, and you find, oh yeah, there's that little nook and cranny in there. I never thought about that, or I haven't thought about that for a very long time.
It gives you a little more clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I lived on tranquilizers and antidepressants for 15 years, ruined my marriage, but I was fortunate enough not to have suicide ideation. I didn't go all the way down a rabbit hole.
Right.
I know how quickly that could happen, however. So what you're doing is an amazing thing. I think a lot of people now have caught on to the fact that PTSD is so destructive of lives.
Right.
But primarily for our first responders, our military veterans,
Correct.
and law enforcement.
Correct. For instance, on the walk now, I worked with the New York State Troopers. They help guide me. Don't walk this way, bad area, And in private, you wouldn't believe how many troopers come to me and say, look, I'm suffering. But they won't step forward because of the stigma. They won't come forward. They're afraid to their job, their family, their gun, their badge. They don't want to lose it. And so what I aim to do, and what I've been trying to do since my film premiered, is to have that open conversation.
Yes, and I think that's gaining traction. Many of the departments now have created confidential resources where a guy who's having a problem can go to. Hopefully it gets better and better as they go forward, because there's still, the egos that are involved in police officers and military, we're warriors.
Yeah.
We're freaking warriors. I'm not a pansy.
Yeah.
I don't need this help. Well, guess what? You do.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah, that's a big, taking that first step is so hard. And the film helps to do that, because when I open up and I'm genuine about my trauma, and I say, look, this is how I feel. They go, oh, that's how I feel, and we have that conversation. My film premiered a year ago in New York City, and since then, I've been traveling around the country on what I call Keep the Conversation Going tour about mental health, everywhere I go. And so we have that open conversation. We need to keep the conversation going about mental health. We need to treat mental health as we do physical health. We need to talk about it. I have cancer. Well, I have a mental health issue,
right.
And talk about it. And so I've been out there trying to get that message out.
I was just going to ask you, what would you like the audience to take away in terms of mental health, PTSD, and suicide?
Yeah.
What's the key message that you'd like to convey to them?
Conversation. Keep the conversation going. Talk about it openly. So when I get introduced, we just had a conversation about me going to Jacksonville next month for Suicide Prevention Month, and they know who I am because I'm on the playbill. But I still introduce myself. My name is Frank Romeo, and I have a mental health problem. I let them know that now that breaks the ice. Okay, we've said it out loud. We need to say it out loud. And when you say it in your head, as you see in the film, it's still in your head. The demons are in there. When you say it out loud,
they kind of quiet down a little bit.
Yeah, people, you hear it yourself, and you say, wow,
No.
Yeah.
I think what you're doing is giving hope to that whole population who may be lost.
Yeah.
You keep seeing the suicides happen, and you go, oh, please, you let the demons win this one. You didn't have to.
Yeah.
We're available. We want to help you.
Yeah.
Did you see that they have the 988 number now? Dial 988 is a national suicide prevention number.
It's a
That's a
problem.
big deal.
Yeah.
Because who remembers a 10-digit number if they're in crisis?
Yeah.
So dial 988 puts you in contact with a crisis counselor.
I call this period of time that we're in the PTSD pandemic. This is the crisis after the crisis. And going through my stages, the unawarenessness, the denial of it, not knowing what's happening to me. My body's changing, I'm changing, everything's changing, and not understanding it. That's where society is right now from after this pandemic. We've locked down mental health, we've locked down suicide, we've locked down domestic violence, child abuse. Think about it. What took place over the last 2 years?
Awareness. Absolutely awareness.
So now we're coming.
People like yourself spreading the message. I know we're trying to do a documentary called Out of the Darkness. I might have said that already to you. Because it's a message that has to be given for hope, not for the demons that live inside you every day and really torment you. It's that they don't have to control you.
Yeah.
There are ways to get away from them. It's really cool. Really, what you're doing, I'm so proud of you for what you're doing, Frank. Really,
Thank you. And it's not my story; it's our story.
It's a story of
It's universal.
Yeah, I would recommend to the audience, please see the film. Frank will tell you where to see it, how to find it, and you can tell the audience anything you'd like to do about how they could help you spread the word.
Well, so I am now going to have a PBS national broadcast throughout the entire country and all U.S. territories. Starting on Veterans Day, we're going to have a Veterans Day special of Walk with Frank. And that's going to be out there. Literally millions of people can tune into it. It's free. And so, people can contact me. You can go to walkwithfrankfilm.com to contact me. I need sponsorship. I need help. It's a lot getting this out there, adapting to TV. It's a whole new ballgame for me, and it's a lot of, jumping through hoops and, closed caption, for instance, things I never thought about. This all costs money. As you know, everything costs money. Yeah, so if anyone would like to help me with my PBS broadcast, you can go to walkwithfrankfilm.com. You can contact me. Sponsors, I welcome anyone interested, anyone who cares about this problem, anyone who's interested in helping other people. I don't get the money. It goes into the foundation. I have a Walk with Frank Foundation. And so the money goes in there to help me get to that next venue so I can reach more people.
Frank, I have to tell you, it's a pleasure for you sitting down with me.
Thank you
Anything
so
we can
much.
do to help you, just let us know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Quite welcome. Keep walking.
Thank you.
All right. So everybody, that's a wrap for today. Frank Romeo, different subject matter today. More important, I think, than any conversation we've ever had with the CEO. This is real. This is a big problem in the country and the world. So if you guys can help him at all, I would appreciate whatever you can do. Frank, he's going to have on the screen. You'll see how to get a hold of him. So thank you all very much. God bless.